through next week's claims. August 16th, just a two-week comparison of last year. Medical's down 154,000. Prescriptions are down 606,000. Overall, 761,000. Less than a year ago, 22% decrease.
But the 17, if you backed out those first couple of months,
It's on a week-to-week comparison. Yeah.
what do you attribute that to?
Well, the bulk of that is that big claims week, prescription claims that we had the first of the year last year.
How much was that, you recall?
Like
500. 565,000.
The part of that 565 was not from the carryover, right? I mean, that
Yeah,
was
that's
legit, that fiscal year
That's
stuff.
Yeah, that was, do you mean?
So we're still at least $200,000
Yeah.
under.
Yep. So far, so good. That's all I got.
All right, is there a motion to receive Danny's update on employee benefits?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Who seconded?
Me.
Mr. Scuda seconded. Is there any opposed to that? All right, item passes. Thank you, Danny. Item number 5, discussion of possible action to transfer $89,371 from general fund reserve to general fund court services to fund 2 new employees in order to provide services at the Oklahoma County Detention Center to improve the efficiency of processing pretrial detainees. We've got the director from that department here. Rand, if you'd like to discuss this
I can
item.
start unless somebody else wants to, doesn't matter to me.
Well, I'll try to give the headlines, and
Sure.
then you can do the
Sure.
details.
Absolutely.
There's been a great deal of discussion, I guess, out of the VERA group, in working with the judges, the public defender, the DEA, as well as the sheriff's office, right? And
Police
your
department.
Police department and your office,
Uh-huh.
to, we actually now have a judge, Judge Cindy Trone, has agreed to come in on weekends and possibly weeknights as we move along. If you're booking in folks, shall we say, that we would have staff on site. Their biggest days, my understanding, is Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Right.
And it's kind of a, it's not kind of, it's a program that we think will reap amazing benefits in keeping costs down at the jail, because as they're being booked, grant staff would do all the stuff that they do, the scoring and the analysis and all that, and anybody that is somebody that possibly get out on conditional bond or whatever it is, they'll compile that, call the judge will come down and sign out. So they don't fully go through a full medical, they don't get dressed out or anything like that. It's just to make that process more efficient. Take it away.
Yeah, really. Just to piggyback on that, what this will do is, and like Rick explained, the VERA group is looking at the criminal justice system as a whole, right? We're a piece of that pie, a piece of that puzzle. With that being said, what this allows is to streamline the process, to lower the jail population, and how that lowers the jail population is, as it's taking time for us to get a signature from the judge, right? Well, those people start stacking up, and then they stack up again, and then they stack up again. Then some are finally released, but then they keep stacking up. So this allows us to capture those people prior to going through the full process of the full expensive medical, getting dressed, getting housed, fed, all that stuff. The total number, like for us, the criteria is not changing. We're still looking at the same types of people, their backgrounds, all that at this point is not changing, right? So the total number is not changing, but what that does, instead of an individual, I mean, we count a conditional bond, we could be waiting for days, weeks, over a month for a signature. What this will allow is those people to be captured right at that moment's notice. They're released, and there's cost savings to the jail, they're not getting backed up, and they're moving out of the jail. Really, in a nutshell.
And these two employees, it's gonna take time. Grant has to advertise, you have to do interviews, possibly 1 or 2 rounds of interviews, and then depending on who it is that they hire, so it could be 8-10 weeks before they get these 2 staff members on board. So this salary, I believe, their salary is about $27,500 plus being,
But per month it's $2,700.
$2,700, that's right.
Right, for salary.
Plus
So
being, so this is a kind of a
that's
prorated.
a 10-month, correct.
10-month look at their salary
Right.
and benefits.
And in a perfect world, and we're working on that, in a perfect world, assuming this goes through and everything passes, is to have a current employee who's already fully trained, up and running, ready to go, interested and willing to do that. In the event that happens, then obviously that position will be backfilled. There's a lot of unknowns going on right now that
For now, you have to cover it with current staff and possibly some overtime, but eventually, once you do, if this were to pass, the budget board, there's a special budget board, I believe, tomorrow afternoon.
yeah, there's that, the VRCC tomorrow to discuss that also.
I think ideally, you're looking at having these people work for 10-hour shifts, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah, morning and night, so that'll capture the complete front end, the complete back end of those peak days. It'll capture those people morning to night. They mentioned too, when we toured the jail, they didn't want any more than almost a 4 or 6 hour stretch at the most of somebody sitting there, because once it starts hitting that point, they gotta get them moving. They gotta get them into medical, they gotta get them housed, they can't just have them sitting there forever. So we wanna be able to capture, in the event that happens, all those people as much as possible to streamline that process.
I think the salary was $27,000 a year, was it not?
No, it was, the $27,000 was for the 10 months.
Oh, the 10 months,
Yeah,
okay.
it got confusing, at $27,000 a year, but
Okay.
$2,700 a month. So
Okay.
$32,400, I believe, for the year,
Which is your standard
which is the beginning, correct.
entry-level fee for mineral officer.
Now, did I hear, maybe you said it, you're not gonna wait to advertise and hire these 2. You're talking about using some employees now and getting this going pretty quick? Or did I?
If that can happen, I mean, what we'd have to do is obviously advertise it, it takes a couple
Yeah.
weeks to do this, interview, that whole process, then this whole training process to get them up and running to even be put over to start. Best case scenario is to have someone like that ready to go.
But right now, if you started this weekend or next weekend, whenever you can, depending on approval, is to use current staff.
And we could, and that's going to be discussed, I believe, at some other meetings this week we have going on, but just so this board does know that, in the meantime, what was requested would be, we could be there and fill those hours, Saturday morning, Sunday morning, to capture all those people that were in the previous
From the night
night.
before.
Correct, right, and we would do our best to do that with current staffing now, whether it be through modifying schedules, overtime, whatever's acceptable.
Is there an estimated annual cost savings?
Well, we looked at that too. The cost savings there's really no way to calculate it. Currently, best case scenario, on like the perfect way would work for an OR. Somebody, let's say you come in Monday morning, you print that person off. Best case scenario, it gets to the judge, they sign it instantaneously, they're released Tuesday, end of day. That's best. Conditional bond, add 2 days onto that, because there's a 24-hour wait period that the district attorney's office has the chance to object or not to a release, so there's an additional day. However, ultimately, it relies on how long it's going to sit on a desk before it's signed. And like I said, there's instances where it's immediate, but then there's instances where it's months. It could sit there waiting. So to calculate an exact amount of how much cost savings it would be, there's no way to know. But I would say at a best case scenario, I mean, there's just no way to know, because you don't know how quick they can get signed.
Have you ever done anything like this before?
No, nothing I'm ever aware of. To house our staff at the jail and do this?
And the total numbers, I mean, they're gonna get everybody out that they normally would.
Right.
It's just a much more efficient process.
Instead of doing it 3, 4, 5 days later, 2 days later, 2 months later, it would be done that, right there, within the hours that we finally get to them, and we can complete the paperwork and the same stuff that we do now, and have the judge come in and sign it.
And this will be done at the jail?
Correct.
And tomorrow on the Board of County Commissioners, as part of this, they have to approve a policy to allow for office space, and I believe Grant's talked with Sheriff Taylor and others over there. It's hard to say that after seeing the Andy Griffith show.
I know.
P.D. Taylor. And, but the Board of County Commissioners, we were advised by Mr. Prater to sign off as a policy by the Board of County Commissioners to allow for space. So that has to be discussed tomorrow morning and approved, and then Budget Board, based on today's vote here, takes that for
And
consideration.
from what I understand, the vote for tomorrow doesn't say, okay, these days, these times, this is any exact details. I believe what it does, and tell me if I'm wrong, is that at least it provides us the ability to be housed over there and do the work we're talking about right now.
Computer, desk, space.
Okay, the thumbnail of this is gonna be in the media that we're gonna start night court. Kind of,
Well, and again.
and God bless
Well-
Judge Strong for volunteering to do that.
And that kind of leads into what I was going to ask as well, because I know we've tried to do some things in the past. There was some court dockets that were being handled over there, but I don't think they're being done over there. And then I think Budget Board and BOCC, the funding difference that was given to you guys to try to alleviate the population was the indigent GPS, the $50,000, and that was like 4 years ago. How much is still in that account?
The last I checked before the last previous payment was around $37,000.
So that's not being utilized near as efficiently. So although this is a great idea, I think, it's only a good idea if everybody stays on board and this is being participated and being done. The $50,000 indigent GPS was a great idea, it's just not being utilized. And maybe there's reasons that I'm not aware of that it, but it just, I mean, that's, and the one thing about that $50,000, it sits in that account and we haven't actually, it's not being utilized, but the money's also still sitting there, the taxpayer dollars. This here is 2 additional employees at $90,000, it's going to be being paid out even if it's not being utilized, even if we're not having the stuff signed off on and the folks are still sitting over there in the jail 3 or 4 or 5 or 2 months. That money is not still sitting in the account, we're actually going to be paying that out. So it will be a cost, irregardless of whether it's being used efficiently or not.
And we'll know if it's not.
But we'll be able to find out through the population in jail if there's any impact on it. And
There's so many variables that tie into the jail population to try and see the correlation between this program and the overall fluctuation of the population is difficult. We could take into consideration arrest rate, number of people being booked in. I mean, it'd be a very difficult formula to calculate. But
Put apples to apples.
yeah, that's you're talking about applying something which I think is great to get people out faster to something, but there's so many other variables that contribute to population in the facility.
But Grant has those numbers. I mean, you may have 400 clients, right? And as long as those 400 clients, some of them aren't over there 3 weeks waiting on you guys to do what you can accomplish in a day, right?
Yeah, and again, a lot of it is like Cody just said, it's dependent upon, we can't look these people from jail, you guys can't, I mean, it's obviously done by the court, so, like I said, what this does is, and the other action is we're discussing that's supposed to be taking place is hiring a retired judge to come back, and that would be their function. They would work with us and capture those people and again, schedules not been confirmed, what hours, what times, every 1 hour, 4 hours, don't know. But that person's sole purpose would be to work with us to streamline that process and get it going.
But to make it clear, you're current right now with the inmate population as far as scoring that. You don't have a backlog that you're working on.
When you say backlog, you mean?
In other words, the people that was incarcerated last night or yesterday, you're working on those
Right.
today?
Correct.
Okay.
And recently, within the last 2 weeks, it's been Judge Strong has agreed to be the contact person on those.
Mhm.
So within the last 2 weeks, I believe it's been 2 weeks, it's been outstanding. We've been able to take everything to her, and she's gotten to it quickly. Prior to that, those 2 weeks,
Right.
it could be,
Which is kind of gets into what I'm saying. I mean, Judge Strong has really stepped up to the plate here, it seems like to me, volunteering to come in nights and weekends, and, you know, I guess it would probably be multiple times over the weekend. But if, you know, if she were for some reason to, you know, to leave the county or do something different and she was no longer there, we're still going to have the commitment from the judicial branch over there to keep this system up and going. We can't, I mean, we won't be able to just keep funding it if we don't have that commitment from that side. I mean, that's where, I mean, we've talked about it from the BOCC side several times, and I mean, it applies to the budget board as well. There's really very little that we can do, you know, as it relates to the jail. I mean, they talk about, you know, how, you know, it's our responsibility for this and it's our responsibility for that. Well, the sheriff's office, by and large, can't control who's brought in because the majority of them aren't brought in by your deputies, right? I mean, they're brought in by other entities. So you got outside police agencies that are bringing folks in. They control a big aspect of it. The DA's office objecting to the conditional bonds and other things.
has become rare, I will say.
But they
there's no
control,
24-hour
right, and they control a part of that process, and the judicial system controls a big part of that process. We're just kind of sitting back and having to, you know, kind of ride the waves with the decisions that are made by other groups. So while I do think this is a great idea, as long as it's followed through. Well, I think it'll work as long as it's followed through.
Right.
Because if we can have somebody down there to process these folks before they get into the system, have to go for a full medical workup and all of that, I mean, it's, you know, I mean, I think it'll be a huge help.
Yes,
A huge
certainly,
savings,
absolutely.
but we're gonna have to have somebody there to sign off on them.
Correct.
For every day we save, it's $42.88 in cost to the sheriffs.
Well, no, there's certain fixed costs and there's certain variable costs, so you can't apply that entire 42.
And that was one thing I was gonna mention, by what we're doing, we capture those people before we do the full medical, they get housed, you know, someone in there, and it takes an additional week for whatever reason, or additional, it's just 1 day, it takes an additional 1 day for that service to be released. He'll be able to answer it better than I can, who knows what's gonna happen in that 1 day.
Right, it's the liability, the unknown liability that can happen.
There could be a
that's
medical
huge.
emergency, there could be anything,
The only
an unforeseen cost.
direct cost that you can absolutely tie back 100% to that person would be their food. Everything else is depending on population. There's different staffing levels. Is not based on if one inmate lower, it means we're one staff member lower. If we're 20 inmates lower, that's not how it works.
Right.
But food, it's per meal, per inmate, per day. So that's definitely a direct. And that's, as Cody mentioned too, the lower the population gets, the lower your risk pool, your liability pool gets as far as medical goes, pharmacy goes. We can't control who comes in that facility with different medical conditions. And those are all things that we have no control over. There are things in place to help through conditional bonds and different things help. Some of those may not be a high risk as far as their crime. That some of those can kind of weigh into those decisions. But yeah, food you can directly correlate to a population lowering. But again, I mean, one inmate, we have one inmate that we don't get out, and they may be our highest inmate for the year just because of what they came in with. They may be on dialysis, they may be on expensive cancer meds. There's no way of knowing we can't reject someone coming in and go, oh, no, you're gonna cost us too much medically.
You're not
Sorry.
healthy enough.
Even if it's somebody pulled over for driving on a suspended license and maybe they have costs or something like that, and now they're in, and that's, I mean, have they looked at,
Well, we don't arrest on fines and costs, Lawrence.
do what?
We don't arrest on
I'm not
fines and costs.
talking about you and your deputies, I'm talking about other agencies that are out there that are bringing folks to the jail.
With the fines and costs, Lawrence, for that municipality, they're a city inmate at that point, it's not gonna be a state. So we're capturing that when they pay us for their municipals. Depends on how they file it.
Are they gonna change any of the aspects of the conditional bond to allow certain, situations to be an immediate? I know there currently is some, but are they expanding that at all, or?
There's
is it
a
looking-
discussion, and this would be a question you'd have to ask the judiciary and the judges, but from what talks I've heard is that they're working on a list of crimes, the extreme low-level crimes, that there would be an order that those people would be almost automatically released, barring out-of-state warrants, other warrants that person may have, but, like a driving on a suspended may be an example that those people would be almost an automatic release.
Because even if they are in there on a municipal charge, there's still a liability on the system from fighting, from a bunch of other stuff, and they could injure another inmate that's in on a state charge. So, I mean, there's lots of stuff that can happen, and then, even if it's not the county's fault, then all of a sudden we're wrapped up into a lawsuit over something that happened to somebody in on a municipal charge that they shouldn't have maybe even been in there in the first place.
Every inmate in the facility carries a liability, one less inmate reduces the
Exactly.
liability risk pool.
Right, that's my point. So everything that we can do to keep that down, but what I'm saying is that alludes to the point of there's a lot of stuff that's outside of our control. That we need the ones that control the process to help us here, and it appears that Judge Trong is willing to step up in a big way here, and that's very appreciated, so.
I make a motion, we approve $89,371 to begin this program.
Second.
And just to be clear, this is for
Contingent
full,
upon BOCC and budget board approval.
right, this is for full salary and benefits for 2 entry-level folks in your,
For 10 months.
for 10 months.
If Larry was maybe also in his motion to add it to the watch list and recommend.
Add it to the watch list and recommend.
Thank you.
As directed.
Sorry.
So it's 89,371 to the watch list and to recommend the budget board contingent upon approval by the BOCC.
My only question is this,
Is that correct? Did I sum it up
That is
accurately?
correct.
before I second it, in the past, we've had to have a separate item to add it to the watch list.
Well, that's kind of, yeah.
So, is this allowing us to add it to the watch list? Because before, we have to have an item to add to the watch list and an item to recommend to the budget board. So I just want to clarify. It doesn't say we can't make a recommendation to the budget board without it being on the watch list, but as far as before that motion gets seconded,
I agree. I think we've done that in the past, and I don't really think there's a need to change the way we do that now. This is a new item that's kind of come up recently, and it needs to be taken care of right now. If for some reason, either BOCC shot it down or budget board shot it down for whatever reason, we could always come back and have a watch list item added for it at a later meeting.
Still, second.
well, is this motion to add it to the watch list now and recommend approval to the budget board, or just recommend approval to the budget board?
I believe the motion was to add the money to the watch list, notify the budget board, send a news release to the Associated Press and the Board of County Commissioners, and then perhaps add it to the BET watch list, if we could. In that order.
I think your question is, correct me if I'm wrong, if we recommend to the budget board that,
Right, and not add it to the watch list.
There just won't be a document.
so is that your number?
Recommend transfer the 89,371 contingent upon approval by the BOCC.
Yeah.
That I'll second.
Take the watch list off then.
Yeah, we've got a motion and a second to recommend to the budget board a transfer of $89,371 from general fund reserve to general fund court services to fund 2 new employees to provide services at the Oklahoma County Detention Center, contingent upon approval by the Board of County Commissioners. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Item number 6, discussion of possible action regarding any item currently on the DEP watch list. We do not have any items on the watch list, so we will move on to new business. Any new business? Seeing none, citizen participation. Anybody want to participate? No. Board comments? Mr. Buchanan?
Oh, thank you.
Amy?
The voters overwhelmingly approved judicial reform, and perhaps this is a first step. Let's hope.
I would just like to say thanks to Ms. Overstreet and her staff for having us out the other day. It was a great tour of their facility. Learned a lot, saw a lot, and it was very beneficial. So I appreciate them welcoming us and answering many of my ridiculously stupid questions, or I should say ignorant questions. But no, I really appreciate their time. So anyway, is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Stand adjourned. Thanks, guys.